Hey there, this is John with Heroes and Legends. Today we have another Magic the Gathering Commander 2015 deck list to take a look at. Today we're going to look at the Izzet deck, which is Seize Control. So yesterday we had a look at the Orzhov deck, which was called the Spirits, which is actually a pretty cool deck. So this is the second one in the series we'll be looking at. We have 3 more after today, so every day we'll be posting a new one. And then hopefully when this product comes out Friday, you'll have a good idea of maybe which ones you'd like to purchase, which ones you'd like to play with. So having said that, let's move into Seize Control and see what we have here. So what we'll do is we're going to start off with the reprints that are in the deck, and then at the end we'll look at the 14 brand new cards. We'll take a closer look at the 14 brand new cards. I'll go through the reprints kind of quick. However, in addition to that, the picture you're going to see on the screen will be the last time this card was printed in the paper format, just to give you an idea of how old it is since we last saw a reprint of the card. So let's start with the creatures. We get a Charm Breaker Devils, Dragon Mage, Ethereum Horn Sorcerer, Goblin Electromancer, Jace's Archivist, Lone Revenant, Malek Izzet Paragon. And one thing you'll see from all these commander decks, they all include 3 legendary creatures that are in the color that are interchangeable as commanders. There's one that's a reprint. In this case, we have Malek, and there's 2 new ones. One is kind of the main commander, and that one is going to use the experience counter mechanic, and then one is kind of like a new card that's a side commander as well. But any 3 of them can be used as the commander if you choose. Psychosis Crawler, Talrand Sky Summoner. Now let's look at sorceries. Call the Skybreaker, Chain Reaction, Epic Experiment, Faithless Looting, Blatant Thievery, Mizium Mortars, Mystic Retrieval, Preordain. So there it is, Preordain got a reprint. So it is a common, so I guess it's pretty cool that it's in here, even though this might cause this deck to be a little bit of a chase item. Not necessarily for everybody, but a lot of modern players like to get their hands on Preordains. Now Preordains don't cost that much. It's going to cost more to buy the actual deck than it is to buy a single Preordain, but you get a new version of it with potentially different art. So there you have it. Rite of Replication, Sleep, Stolen Goods, Vandal Blast, Windfall. Now we'll take a look at the instants. You'll notice that there's a lot of instants. This deck really revolves around playing its spells at instant speed. We have Active Aggression, Etherize, Blue Sun Zenith, Bluster Squall, Brainstorm, Comet Storm, Counterflux, Desperate Ravings, Dominate, Echoing Truth, Factor Fiction, Firemind's Foresight, Magma Quake, Prophetic Bolt, Reigns of Power, Repeal, Steam Augury, Stroke of Genius, Urza's Rage, Word of Seizing, and we'll move on to artifacts. Get an Izzet Signet, Soul Ring, Worn Power Stone, and now there's one enchantment, Thought Reflection. And we'll look at the lands real quick. We get a Command Tower, Evolving Wilds, Izzet Boilerworks, Izzet Guildgate, Reliquary Tower, Rogue's Passage, Spinerock Knoll, Swiftwater Cliffs, Temple of the False God, Terramorphic Expanse, Vivid Crag, Vivid Creek, and then 14 Islands, and finally 13 mountains will round out the mana base. So before we get into the new cards, you probably noticed just by looking at those reprints, basically the whole idea of this deck is to see cards. You are drawing a lot of cards, you're digging through your deck quite deep, and from a offensive defensive point of view, there's a few creatures that are pretty strong. You'll see a few more as we get to the new cards, and there's also some token creatures that can be recast with retrace, things of that nature. So this deck feels to me like really a control deck, but with a strong flashback theme. Flashback seems to be what it's really trying to do. I wouldn't call it a storm deck, even though storm decks a lot of times take advantage of flashback type mechanics to power out more spells. This does allow you to cast a lot of your spells either for free out of your deck, like with Epic Experiment, or for free out of your graveyard with some of the cards we're about to see in just a few seconds. But I want to go as far as to call it a storm deck. It almost doesn't need to be a storm deck, because I think if it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, you don't need a storm count. You're just going to take out your opponents with a huge amount of free instants and sorceries and a ton of card advantage. So my overall, review, for lack of a better word, of this seems like a real powerful deck. Anytime you can see a lot of cards and draw a lot of cards, you're in for a deck that's going to have a lot of power to it. Now, in multiplayer games, that can be tempered a little bit just by the fact that the person who's drawing all the cards will sometimes become a target because other players realize how dangerous that is. So there is a little bit of a check and balance that you don't have in a one-on-one matchup. So having said that, let's go ahead and look at the new cards. There's 14 of them. First is Ether Snatch, and this is pretty cool. It reminds me a little bit of Commandeer, but perhaps better in a few ways. Basically, you get to steal a spell, so you get to choose new targets for that spell. If it's a permanent, it just comes into play under your control, so it's almost like being able to steal a permanent. You just have to do it at instant speed when it's being cast, or you can redirect the spell. So a lot of versatility there. Pretty cool card. I do like this one a lot. And their art, you'll notice that the art on a lot of these new cards has been pretty impressive. I've really liked what they've done with some of this art. Arjun the Shifting Flame. Now, he's the kind of backup new commander, not the official commander, but still a really fine card and great stats. 5/5 flyer for 6 is pretty awesome. And on top of that, he's just going to let you get through your deck. Whenever you cast a spell, you get to basically dig based on how many cards were in your hand at the time, and you just get to kind of cycle through your whole deck. Awaken the Sky Tyrant. Now, this is interesting to me. This is meant to slow down the game. Now, there are a lot of huge haymaker spells. This deck does need a little time to set up, so this is a card that's going to help you buy some time, maybe encourage players to attack somebody else instead of yourself when you put this out, just so you don't end up with a 5/5 red dragon flying on the battlefield. Broodbirth Viper. So this deck gets one of the Myriad cards. I like this Myriad mechanic in Commander. I think this is really cool. So basically, paying 5 for a 3/3 isn't super exciting, but when it attacks, it basically attacks all your opponents at the same time if you wanted to, and then you can draw a card for any time combat damage gets through to a player. More card draw, decent creature. The Myriads makes it interesting. Next we have Gigantoplasm. I talked a lot about this in the spoiler video, if you saw that. I really love this card. It just kind of hits home for me, I guess, because I used to play a lot with Clone. But this is Clone with upside. You get to clone something, and then on top of it, it gets the clause X, and this creature has power and toughness base XX. That's pretty awesome. I love the art. I love the... I'm not going to try to pronounce the character's name from Ravnica, but I love that he's on there, and that he's been cloned and then grown, I guess, and he's chasing down the goblin who's chasing himself. It's pretty awesome. So the art's cool. I love the concept here, and it feels like a real powerful card. You can clone the most powerful thing on the board and then pump it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Illusory Ambusher. I like this combat trick quite a bit. Another great way to just draw a whole bunch of cards. Your opponent attacks in, you flash this in, maybe you take out a creature, but regardless, you could be drawing quite a few cards if you catch somebody by surprise here. Meteor Blast, so just kind of a mini board sweep, kind of a board sweep. It's going to get rid of creatures that are 4 or less, and pretty good card. You can definitely spread the damage around in a multiplayer game. Mirror Match, here's another card that kind of punishes your opponent for attacking in at you. And if you're familiar with the deck list, just having 6 mana up may deter them from attacking you at all, because this can be a big blowout if someone attacks and you play this unexpectedly. Mizzix of the Is Magnus, and this is the official commander. As you can see here, he kind of plays around with the experience counters, and he just is a huge ramp guy. He's going to help you ramp out your instants and sorceries. Now, you kind of have to cast them on a curve. That might be awkward at times, and you might not get as many experience counters as you would like. But it doesn't matter, because as the game goes longer and longer, you're going to be just fine, especially when you're digging through your deck the way you're going to be digging through your deck. So this guy's quite good. A little fragile as a 2/2, and he costs 4, so he could get expensive, but you should have tons of mana to play around with as the game goes on. Mizzix Mastery. This one's interesting to me. Basically, for the overload cost, which is still a little pricey at 3 red and 5 colorless, you can basically just go ahead and cast everything out of your graveyard, at least instants and sorceries. So I guess the question being, this is one card that maybe I could possibly see making it into Legacy. That overload feels really expensive, but with the right kind of trick to maybe get yourself a lot of mana, could something like this fit into the Storm deck? I don't know, maybe. Is there's a hole that could use something like this? And there might not be, but I want to be shocked to see someone try to put one of these in their Storm deck. Only costs 4, so it plays relatively well with Ad Nauseam. So there you have it. Just kind of an interesting thought. Overload's a little pricey though. Although paying 4 just to get 1 copy of something recast isn't the worst thing in the world either. Mystic Confluence. So I've talked a lot about these confluences in the spoiler videos, and I also talked about one in yesterday's video, but love these cards. The versatility is amazing. I love the fact they're costed high enough that they're not going to become legacy chase cards, hopefully, but they're still very, very powerful for cube and for commander. And I love the fact that you can triple up on a mode or do 2-in-1 or one of each. Just so much versatility in these. The blue one is also an instant on top of that, so that's pretty awesome too. Works really well in this particular deck. Rite of the Raging Storm. This is a fun card to me, and I love the implications of this in a Commander multiplayer game. Like, you put this down, and then your opponents get these 5/1 elementals that they basically can attack each other with trample and haste, of course. And they do sacrifice at the end of this step, which is good because you probably don't want a million of these things roaming around. But as long as you have the enchantment in play and they're getting these creatures, they can attack you, so their choices are either do nothing with it, or maybe they just go ahead and attack somebody else because they have the ability to, and really no drawback other than maybe incurring the other person's wrath. So it's kind of a funny way to kind of get your opponents fighting with each other. It's kind of neat. So there you have it. I don't know. I like this design. I hope they do more stuff like this in the future with Commander. I really like this. Seal of the Guild pack. So we kind of assumed this card would be in this deck when we saw it spoiled, not only because the spotlight was on Izzet in the picture, but also because it kind of is what this deck wants to do. Just kind of helps power out those spells, make them cheaper. There's some huge Haymaker spells in here that cost a lot, and this helps you cast them a little bit cheaper along with the experience counters in the Commander. Thought Vessel. So here's the second card now you've seen that says you have no maximum hand size, which is very good for a deck like this, which could be drawing a lot of cards. It's also a mana trinket, and that's always cool to have. So I do like this a lot. Between this and Reliquary Tower, yeah, you have a good chance of being able to pull one of these and hopefully hold on to a few extra cards in your hand too. And the last card is War Chief Giant. This is another Myriad card. It's got a haste. It's a 5/3, so it's not super impressive, but it only costs 5 for a haste creature, and you can attack everybody, so that's pretty cool. It feels a little awkward in this deck. It doesn't feel like what this deck is doing for the most part, but it's still very powerful and very fast, which kind of makes sense, I guess, for the build. Well, having said that, that's the deck list for Seize Control. So let me know in the comments below what you think if you like this one. This one may be one of my favorites I really like this type of deck. I prefer control decks in general, so maybe that's why I just gravitate to something like this. I even played Epic Experiment in Sealed one time, and it actually did pretty well for me. I just had the right pool. So I just like those kind of interactions. Storm is a deck I've played in the past. So this kind of speaks to me, I suppose. And overall, though, I think this could be a powerful deck with all the card draw. Like I said earlier, this could be very, very strong, and it'll be interesting to see how it is against the other 4 builds that are out there. So, and on top of that, a lot of good cards in here that you can use to maybe cannibalize for your other commander decks as well. All right, well, as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow with the 3rd in the series, and until then, have a great day.
Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality videos for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a good day.